The price of Bitcoin has topped $28,000 for the first time in 9 months after the banking crisis sparked a market rally. Just as investors view the currency as an alternative to the banking system, but also as somewhat of a safe haven. Despite this, crypto firms are now scrambling to find institutions to bank with after the collapse of both digital-friendly institutions Signature Bank and Silvergate Capital. And it looks as if they are now turning to crypto banks based in Switzerland, which has been trying to market itself as a crypto hub with stricter regulation in recent years. Gold prices are also up, and according to analysts, they could notch an all-time high after the US Federal Reserve's interest rate decision on Wednesday. Let's get more on this now with Susanna Streeter in Bristol in the UK. She's head of money and markets at Hargreaves Lansdown. Susanna, thank you very much for joining us today. So crypto prices, can they grow further? What do you expect will happen at this point in terms of regulation, if anything?
Obviously, they can grow further. We've seen crypto being extremely volatile, haven't we, over the past a few years, and certainly after the war in Ukraine, you did see a spike in crypto, and then you saw some pretty dramatic falls as well. And yes, we have seen Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin surge as this banking scare took hold. It's certainly behaving kind of a bit more like a safe haven asset. Interestingly, it didn't perform so much like an inflation hedge as was expected, as we saw spikes in inflation, but certainly at times of perceived crisis, there does seem to be a stampede into Bitcoin, but often this doesn't last. And also, compared to gold, for example, we've seen gold prices rise as well over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, because it's so volatile, it isn't really that great as a store of value, really, because prices can rise and fall, as we've seen, just so dramatically.
Right, and even though we're not really sure whether we can call crypto store of value, having store of value sort of functions and being a safe haven, do you expect that will be some sort of a flight to safe havens after the Fed's decision today, and why? What's your expectation?
Well, potentially, we have already seen this flight to safe havens. Now, you can look at the Fed decision in two ways. There is some expectation that the Fed might hold rates as they are rather than going on the path of further gradual increases in interest rates because of what's happened, because of the turmoil in the banking sector. On the other hand, Fed policymakers may also want to signal that they are not rattled by what's happened to try and shore up more confidence in the banking system, so may well still go ahead with a rate hike because inflation is still punishingly high. And they also see that as a longer-term threat to financial stability rather than the short-term instability that we've seen in the banking sector. At the moment, there is hope that it is short-term and is being contained because of the actions of central banks and of regulators and also the US government. I think if there was a really big hike by the Federal Reserve, there might well be a fresh flight to safety, but I don't foresee a stampede if there is only just a gradual 0.25% hike as expected.
Right, or potentially a market rally if the Fed were to pause. Let's see. Susanna Streeter, thank you very much. And now let's go to other top stories from around the world. Inflation in the UK has jumped unexpectedly in February, breaking a 3-month streak of declines. Consumer prices increased 10.4% in the year to February, up from 10.1% last month, as food and energy bills continued to rise. The data could increase the chances of another interest rate hike this week from the Bank of England. Sri Lanka has received the first $330 million installment of an International Monetary Fund loan as it suffers the worst economic crisis in its history. On Monday, the fund agreed to a $3 billion rescue package designed to shore up the island nation's economy. The program will help Colombo to restructure a substantial part of its $84 billion public debt. And the Japanese government has unveiled more than $15 billion in additional aid to mitigate the impact of surging inflation. The move comes as the ruling parties are set to face local elections across the country next month. The measures include payouts to low-income families and support for households that use liquefied petroleum gas. And that is all from Business for now.